Hey everyone, welcome to Math Talk. I'm your host, Brian Heisler. Today we're going to take a look at round 2 of my 3-part series on word problems. If you hadn't yet had a chance to check out part 1, I encourage you to do so. But if you have, let's continue with round 2. We have an example that says, 2 houses are for sale on the same street. The second house has 1,000 square feet less than twice the square feet of the first house. Together, the 2 houses have 4,400 square feet. What is the square footage of the first house? All right, so there's a lot of information in this word problem. We need to kind of break it down into different parts and use that to help us solve for the question that they ask. So they tell us that the second house has 1,000 square feet less than twice the square feet of the first house. And then together, the 2 houses have 4,400 square feet. What that means is they gave us basically 2 equations to use. One of them says the second house, which I'll call S, is equal to 1,000 square feet less, so minus 1,000, twice the square feet of the first house, so 2F, where F is just the first house. So the second house is twice the square footage of the first house minus 1,000. And then together, the 2 houses have a total of 4,400 square feet. So the second house plus the first house equals 4,400. All right. Then they ask what's the square footage of the first house. Okay. So this is an example of where they give us 2 equations, and I can actually use what's called substitution. It's the first thing that comes to mind for me, because what they do is they tell us that they give us an example of one variable equals some expression involving the other variable. And whenever that happens, you can use substitution for the second equation to kind of help set up your problem. So what I mean by that is they tell us that S is equal to 2F minus 1,000. So what I can do is I can take that 2F minus 1,000 and I can plug it in for S in the second equation. And the reason why I would want to do that is because then my second equation would have terms with only F in it, one variable. And that means I could solve for F, the one variable. So because they're the same, you can substitute one for the other. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to take my second equation, and instead of S plus F, I'm going to say 2F minus 1,000 plus F equals 4,400. All right. Now that my equation just has one variable, I can simplify and solve. So when I do that, 2F plus 1F is 3F minus 1,000 equals 4,400. Next step is I just add 1,000 to both sides. That gets me 3F equals 5,400. And then my last step is to divide both sides by 3, which gets me F equals 1,800. So that means F, since F is indicating the first house, and they ask us for the square footage of the first house, my answer is that the first house has 1,800 square feet. If you needed to, you could always use that information to find the square footage of the second house, but they don't ask us in this example, so we're going to move on to the next one. All right, this one says a student scored a total of 180 points on 2 math tests. On the first test, she scored 6 points lower than the score she got on her second test. How many points did the student score on the first test? All right, so similar situation. They give us 2 sets of information, a first score compared to a second score, and then a total between both scores combined. So let's use what we know to put it into equations and then solve from there. So they tell us that the first test, which I'm going to say is F, it was 6 points lower or less than the second test, which is this S for second test minus 6. All right, that's good to know. And then the total between the two, F plus S, is 180 total points. All right. So again, we have a situation where they give us one of the variables in terms of the other. So since F is the same thing or is equal to S minus 6, I can substitute S minus 6 in for F in the second equation, and then I get just one equation with one variable that I can solve for. All right, so let's do that. instead of f plus s, I'm going to say s minus 6 plus s equals 180. All right, perfect. Now there's just s. I can simplify and start to solve. So when I simplify, I get 2s minus 6 equals 180. Then I just got to add 6 to both sides so I can get 2s by itself. So 2s equals 186. And then I just need to divide both sides by 2, and I get s equals 93. Now, be careful because this actually isn't the final answer in my problem. This is the score on the second test. They ask us, what's the score on the first test? So you got to be careful because I'm pretty sure that 93 would be one of the answer choices if this was a multiple choice selection. So let's use that information to solve for the first test though. So I go back to my original equation. F for the first test is the second test minus 6. So I know that my second test is 93. I'll plug it in, and then I get 93 minus 6 equals 87, which means the answer to this is that she got a score of 87 on her first test. All right, perfect. One more example, and then we'll be done with round 2. So this one says Sam is paid $350 per month plus a 10% commission on his total sales. If he needs to earn at least $2,100 per month, what is the least amount of sales that he needs to achieve? All right, so there's an interesting scenario with this. They basically give us an inequality in words, and we need to put it in letters and numbers and solve. I know it's an inequality because they use the term at least in some amount. So at least is an indicator of the inequality symbol greater than or equal to. So let's go ahead and kind of set up our inequality and then solve. So they say Sam is paid $350 per month plus 10% commission on his total sales. So I'm going to use S to represent sales. 10% of the total commission is like 0.1. And then anytime you hear the word of in math, you want to think of multiply. So 10% of his sales, 10% times his sales, and that has to be at least 2,100 or greater than or equal to 2,100. All right, perfect. Now I have an inequality. I can go ahead and solve for S, which is his sales. So to do that, I'm going to subtract 350 from both sides. That gets me 0.1S is greater than or equal to 1750. Then I just need to divide both sides by 0.1. Good thing about this is there's a trick to that. Divided by 0.1 is the same thing as multiplying by 10, because 0.1 is the same thing as 1/10, and dividing by 1/10 is the same thing as multiplying by 10. Even better yet, multiplying by 10, the trick to that is just throw an extra 0 at the end of your answer. And so then we get, in this case, S is greater than or equal to 17,500, which means Sam needs to make at least $17,500 in sales if he wants to earn at least $2,100 this month. So I hope this helps as you get to problems that ask you to set up either one or two equations or inequalities. And be careful when you're solving for problems that involve finding a solution to more than one of the types of questions they ask you, whether it's the first and the second, or the biggest or the largest. You really want to be careful of what they're specifically asking you, because a lot of times the other number is going to be one of the answer choices in your multiple choice selection. But again, I hope this helps as you get to these types of problems. Be on the lookout for round 3 of the word problem mini series. And as always, thanks for watching.